Welcome to the Holy Unraveling, where we stop pretending we're fine and start inviting God into the messy middle. I'm Silvia, therapist, wife, mother. Here we talk about what no one else wants to, the pain, the fears, the unraveling, because I believe that God often begins the deepest transformation right where things fall apart. This is where we gently, honestly, and sacredly untangle the places inside of us that feel knotted with fear, shame, and uncertainty. Today, we're going to talk about a word that makes a lot of us flinch: obedience. Not the harsh, heavy, punishing version that many of us grew up with, but the kind of obedience that's rooted in love, in trust, in being known by God and letting Him lead you into the life He imagined for you. Today's episode 4, Holy Obedience, moving with God even when you're still afraid. Last week, we talked about discerning God's voice from fear. This week, we're going to go deeper into what happens after you know it's Him. Because many of us can discern God's voice, but do we actually follow Him? This is where we get stuck. Sometimes I get stuck. So let's settle in, let's take a deep breath, and let's unravel this together. What holy obedience truly is. You know, obedience is one of those words that carries a lot of baggage. For some of us, obedience meant don't mess this up, don't disappoint, don't ask questions, don't talk back. So of course, our nervous system tenses when God invites us to take a step. But in Orthodoxy, obedience is not about control. It's relational. It's about trust, alignment, movement. It's a love story. Obedience says, God, I'm scared, but I trust you more than I trust my fear. Obedience is trust in motion. It's not perfection. It's not performance. It's not doing everything right. It's simply saying yes when God nudges you to move forward. But why is obedience so hard, even when we love God? I think it's because most people think obedience is hard because they're either spiritually weak or they are rebellious somewhat, or it doesn't feel right to them. But honestly, obedience is hard because our nervous system prefers the familiar, not the good. Your brain is wired for safety, and safety means anything you've survived, even if it's unhealthy. So when God calls you into something new, your body doesn't say, oh, yay, I'm growing. It actually says, alert, unknown, this is dangerous. There's a part of you that thinks old patterns are safer than new freedom. And that's not a spiritual flaw, that's neuroscience. Kind of like when I started this podcast, it didn't feel familiar to me. I preferred writing. I didn't want to use my voice and put it out there on such a public platform. But He kept nudging me. So here's a few reasons why obedience feels scary. So we talked about how the body clings to the familiar. You've survived with your coping mechanisms, with your overthinking, with your perfectionism, with being the strong one, with silence, even with shrinking. So when God says, come out, your body goes, no, we know this pattern. This is safe here. Fear disguises itself as wisdom. You'll say things like, I don't feel peace yet. I need more clarity. I need confirmation. Maybe it's not the right timing. But that's often not discernment. That's your nervous system begging to avoid discomfort. Old core beliefs block you. Like, what if I'm wrong? What if God is disappointed in me? What if I fail? What if people judge me? What if I'm not good enough? Behind almost every obedience struggle is a wound in identity. Obedience doesn't require spiritual trust, it requires healing. The Orthodox heart of obedience. When we look at Scripture, God rarely removes His people from difficulty, but He always meets us inside of it. Think about Daniel in the lion's den, or the disciples in the storm, or the Theotokos saying, let it be done. Christ in Gethsemane whispering, not my will. Obedience is not passive suffering. It is active communion. The Desert Fathers say obedience frees us from the tyranny of our own will. Not to erase us, but to return us to our true self, the one that feared being buried, and God is now restoring. Obedience says, I will move even when I don't feel ready, because God is already on the other side of my yes. Now, I like to give you practical tools for holy obedience. So, tool number 1, micro-step obedience. One of the biggest mistakes we make spiritually is assuming obedience has to be this big, dramatic, brave, life-changing thing. But your brain cannot make huge leaps. Neurologically, it resists anything that feels like a threat. This is why micro steps work. Micro steps calm the nervous system. They lower the perceived threat. They trick the amygdala into staying quiet. They create dopamine-based momentum, the I did it effect. They build self-trust because they are doable, not overwhelming. And they create safety associations with obedience, literally rewiring the brain. So here's how you practice it. When you sense God leading you into something unknown, unfamiliar, a little bit scary, I want you to identify the smallest possible action, that micro step of bravery. Send the email, read one paragraph, write the first line, stand up and stretch, set a 3-minute timer, and then do it. Then number 2, do it within 24 hours, because urgency builds anxiety, but movement builds peace. Pair it with prayer that signals safety. Say the Thanksgiving prayer. The neuroscience behind it that says every microstep creates new neural pathways. Obedience equals safety. Obedience equals clarity. Obedience means God is here. And over time, your body stops panicking and starts cooperating. Tool number 2, the 3-voice check. God's voice, fear's voice, ego's voice. This is going to help you differentiate between the 3. But here's the deeper psychology behind it. Fear's voice often mimics trauma. Fear says catastrophic thinking, all or nothing thoughts, urgency, the freeze response, false senses of danger. Fear reenacts the past. The last time I tried this, I got hurt. This is unsafe. Ego's voice mimics shame and self-protection. Ego is not pride, always. It is a protector part. It says, what will people think? I don't want to look stupid. I need to be impressive. It's not sinful, it's scared. But God's voice brings nervous system regulation. God's voice is spacious. It calms your breath. It brings clarity, not chaos. Psychologically, God's voice engages our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that's responsible for wisdom, peace, emotional stability, long-term thinking. Fear activates the amygdala. God activates the soul and the higher brain. Tool number 3, obedience without overthinking. Overthinking is probably everyone's downfall from time to time. Overthinking is the mind's attempt to create certainty so it can avoid risk. Your brain thinks, if I analyze every angle, I won't have to feel fear. But spiritually and psychologically, this becomes paralysis. A friend of mine said analysis paralysis when we overthink. Fear of mistakes, fear of responsibility, fear of disappointment, trauma from past failures, attachment wounds that say, if I get this wrong, I'm going to get punished. Overthinking is self-protection masquerading as discernment. Psychology hack is the brain doesn't need certainty to move. It needs safety. So instead of thinking your way into obedience, act your way into clarity. God's guidance is often revealed in motion. The waters didn't part until the priest steps in. Movement precedes miracles. Tool number 4, body-based obedience prayer, somatic therapy. Okay? Before you obey with your feet, you have to obey with your body. Because you cannot fight fear by thinking. You fight fear by regulating. So this is why grounding works. When you place your hand on your chest and breathe deeply, you're activating the vagus nerve, this sympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest state, and all of your oxytocin pathways, the hormone for safety and connection, those warm and fuzzy feelings. This makes obedience feel less danger and more like presence. Here's the practice. Place your hand on your chest, feel the weight on your hand, and breathe in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 2 seconds, then breathe out for another 4 seconds. And whisper, God, I move with you, not with fear. This will interrupt your fight, flight, or freeze loop. So your body becomes a partner in obedience, not an obstacle. I'm giving you a lot of tools today. Tool number 5, the obedience and attachment theory, because many people don't obey God easily. Not because we're rebellious, but because their attachment wounds tell a story. Authority isn't safe. I'll get hurt if I follow someone. If I'm vulnerable, I'll be abandoned. That's a big one. If I mess up, love will be withdrawn. So obedience can become triggering. But here's the healing truth. God is the only one whose authority is never weaponized, never manipulative, never inconsistent, and never shaming. Obedience will heal those attachment wounds when we experience God as responsive and gentle and consistent. This isn't obedience trauma. This is obedience restoration. Tool number 6, parts work. Who inside me is afraid to obey? So this comes from internal family systems, IFS. Inside you are different parts. The scared inner child, the perfectionist, the protector, the achiever, and the one who believes they're unqualified. Instead of forcing yourself to obey, ask, which part of me is scared right now? And offer compassion. Then bring that part into God's presence, because healing is not pushing past yourself. Healing is bringing every part of yourself into communion. Behavioral psychology shows that people don't change long-term through motivation or through willpower. They can change through identity shifts as well. Not, I need to obey, but I am someone who God moves with. Obedience becomes a natural expression of who you believe you are. So this is why spiritual identity is so essential, because identity determines behavior. And in Orthodoxy, your identity is beloved, chosen, renewed, never alone, strengthened by grace. So I shared with you a little bit of story about obedience in my own life. When God put this podcast in my mind and in my heart, and a couple of people that I really respect and admire, whom I hope eventually to interview on this podcast, kept encouraging me to do it a few years ago, actually. I often said, no, I prefer writing. And the reason is because I kind of felt unqualified. I felt nervous. I thought, who am I to do this? Why would I get behind the mic? I worried I'd make a mistake and then everybody would see it, say the wrong thing, not be polished enough, not perfect. So I delayed, I over-researched, and I asked too many people for confirmation and validation. But deep down, I knew this was him. And you know what I realized? Every single fear I had was rooted in some kind of an old wound, not in God. My fear said, you're not enough, Silvia. But obedience said, God will be enough for you. And the moment I finally took that small step, that one small yes, the next step appeared. Not all at once, just enough light to keep moving. The podcast is my obedience, and the fruit has been so humbling. Not because I'm confident, but because God is faithful. So today I want to invite you into this. I want you to think about this. What is the one thing God has been nudging you to do? And what is that fear that's been blocking you? Write it down, pray over it, and choose one micro step of bravery today. God isn't asking you for perfection. He's not demanding performance, and he's not shaming you into obedience. He's saying, walk with me. I'm here. So as we wrap up today, I want you to remember this. Obedience is not losing yourself and your freedom. It's rediscovering that part of you that fear buried, and God is resurrecting. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for healing with me in this holy unraveling. If this episode blessed you, please share it with a friend, leave a review, and help us reach other people who won't walk into the therapy office but desperately need this space. I'll see you again next week for episode 5. But for now, take a deep breath and move with God one step at a time.